Hello and welcome to LoveWorkLife Training Academy. Apparently, according to the new face of Zoom, I am now live, which is really good. As people start to log into the session, what I want to do is make sure that everyone can hear me. So if everyone can just drop a quick note into the chat box to say, yes, they can hear me, that'd be very much appreciated. Obviously, it's earlier this week than normal, so I apologize if I have to change my times, if that's upset anybody. I had one person saying they couldn't make it at 1 o'clock, but they'd look forward to the meetings soon. So I will get the email out, get the recording of this over and onto our website as soon as possible. But as always, let's have a quick shout out on who's joining us today, because there's lots of people. It's a very busy webinar as usual. So welcome to all the guys from Westway, The One Group, TTS 24/7, Cherry Professionals, HR Recruitment, Elite Personnel, Plum Personnel, Recruitability, Autograph Recruitment, Truly Tailored, Flexology, Experis, Star Recruit, who else is there? Impact Recruitment, Farrington, Partap, Clara Rose Consulting, FJ Williams, Truly Tailored, there again, so there's lots of people from Truly Tailored, I keep missing them. Medical Wing Locums, PG Recruit, Aventus Legal, Brownlee Dean, Cherry Professional, Nicole Curtin, Agile Recruitment, Set2 Recruit. Who else have we got on here today? We've already mentioned Brownlee as well. They're in, so there's lots of people from here. We've got JS Recruitment, Austin Lee, Hall Recruitment. We've got Invictus Recruitment. We've got... who else is that? First Choice Recruitment, Fairways Recruitment, Plum Personnel are in, and then we've also got May Stevenson's. We have got Tyro Associates, and that's about everyone I think that's started to come in. So everyone started sort of flocking, which is really good to see. So as people start to move in and people start to log in, because as always, it's a bit of a strange time. It's at 11:30, so I do apologise for that. Let me give you sort of a bit of background on this course so we sort of understand where we're going from and what we're talking about. So every week I give a shout out for what courses do you want, and someone said, can you do as a course on building contract, because the contract market is the market that's going to come back nice and quick. So this course I've written over a number of years, and back in the very early 90s when I was almost fresh-faced, that's what I was. I was a contract recruitment in the IT market. I worked for 10 years as a contract recruitment at my pomp. At biggest year, I think I billed 750K. And so when I started to sort of go into management, I started to look at things such as how to build a desk, how to maintain a desk, how to manage a desk. And what I started to work out was the market started to change and the internet started to come in, because yes, I was on a Rolodex when I first started. The actual fundamentals of building a contract desk hasn't changed. What's changed the technology around it that, in my view, makes it a lot easier to build a contract desk. But what we've got to start to look at when we actually build that contract desk, we've got to start to understand what it takes to build a contract desk, why it's important that we do certain things, and why it's important that we understand certain things. So the first part of the course today is I'm going to talk about building that contract desk. And when I say contract, what we have to remember is that I'm referring to contract and temp at the same time. But what I'll do is when I come to sort of talk about the difference between contract and temp and negotiating with contract and temp, I will start to separate those out so everybody can understand what's going on. So hopefully this week, we won't have, like last week, we won't have any disasters on the internet. It seems sort of to be running smooth. It's been running smoothly all day. I've been on it since about 6:30 this morning with different clients all over the world. So that's really good from my point of view. So this morning in Australia, tonight it was really cold and rainy, so just like it is here in Yorkshire at the moment. So let me kick off with what's going on. So the objectives of today's course, and the first half, I'm going to do objectives in two different halves so we understand what's going on. So I'm going to look at product, I'm going to look at pitch, I'm going to look at profile, I'm going to look at publicize, I'm going to look at partnership, and I'm going to look at process. And all these things are really important. And as the world has become more media-led, all these things now start to link together. So it's important, whether you're doing a temp desk, whether you're doing a contract desk, that we start to look at all of these things in isolation. So when I first start to look at building my desk, the first thing I look at is product. And to me, the product is really important. I've got to look at what I'm looking for from a product point of view. So when I start to look at my marketplace, the first thing I need to do is decide on a niche market. Now that could be a technical niche, it could be a geographical niche, it could be an industry niche. But what I got to make sure is when I look at that niche, that I am going niche enough. If you want to be generic as a temp or contract recruiter, what you find is that you're going to suffer in the marketplace. What we need to make sure is that we use our time wisely as a contract recruiter to make sure that we maximize our opportunities. It's always interesting when we talk to the difference between contract and temp. Contract is very, very high tempo. It's very, very fast recruitment. It is, almost that bum on the seats recruitment. So to make sure that you can maximize every hour of every single day, it's important that when you decide on your niche, that you go narrow enough that there is enough market to actually go at, or geographically enough, there's enough clients within that marketplace to actually work it. So we've got to understand the technical, geographical, and industry niche that we want to decide. We then need to do due diligence on that niche. And the first thing I look at, which any niche that I take on, is I look at the number of large or clients with large either contract or temp teams. I want to look at those clients because that gives me a really good sort of view of the marketplace. It also gives me a great opportunity to say, which clients should I be targeting? Who are the cash cow in my marketplace? Where can I get lots of money? And lots of people shy away from calling these type of clients because they've either got a preferred supplier list, an RPO, etc. Well, I can tell you now, even these days, backdooring these clients by offering a better service, a better quality of candidate, you can open some huge doors. And I mean open huge doors. And I'll give you one prime example. I ran a team in Computer People of contract recruiters. Okay, one of our clients had a master vendor with Hayes, and Hayes had to put everybody into their sites across the UK. We had a £38,000 a week contract order book running out of that client, backdooring Hayes. So don't tell me we can't backdoor clients, we can. So find your large clients that have large contract or temp teams. These are primary targets for you to look at. You've got to work out how you can beat your competition and what value you can add to them to make sure you can open the door and get behind any PSL or any agreement that they have in place. I then want to look at the candidates in my geographical area, or candidates that can travel to those type of clients. So are there enough candidates in the marketplace to furnish the desire of that client? Are there candidates in that marketplace to make sure I can make a really good living at that market? I then want to look at, very simply, I want to look at the amount of competition in that marketplace. And the reason I want to look at the amount of competition is because I want to see how saturated the marketplace, how hard it is to start to command the higher fees and better terms. If the marketplace is too saturated, maybe it's the wrong marketplace. Maybe there are better marketplaces. And looking at longevity is really important. And I'll give you a prime example, and this links it back with the amount of competition. When I first started in IT recruitment, I started calling clients and instantly had other consultants going, that's my client, that's my client, that's my client, because basically there wasn't a CRM. And what I was doing, I was calling IBM mainframe clients and ICL mainframe clients. And I got a bit annoyed and a bit sort of touchy about, hang on, I'm calling all these clients and they're always somebody else's clients, but they're not actually doing anything with these clients. So I came across a niche market called AS400, which is the precursor to sort of really PCs on laptops and what have you on people's desks in businesses. And I worked out that if I get into that market, none of the people in my business that I was colleagues were with were working in that market. So I'd have free reign. And so I opened that marketplace. That market ran until about 2007. Now, that market then was discontinued by IBM, but that marketplace still exists today. So there's 2 or 3 clients that purely do AS400 still, They now have zero competition over those 2 or 3 clients, but their market is shrinking because the number of clients using AS400 is diminishing hugely. So we've got to start to think about the longevity and the competition in a couple of ways. So if it's longevity, it's a long marketplace, what's coming out next? We've got to start to review that all the time. So the due diligence is really important. And the other side that I always look at, you need to know the law that will affect your contractors. If I know the law that's going to affect my contractors, I know certain things that may happen. So IR35, obviously, in the contract market is big at the moment. And come April, when it comes in, how are you going to cope? How are your clients going to cope? What effect is that going to have on your clients? What effect is that going to have on your contract book? Okay, so we've got to start to think about how those things, when the working time directive came in on the temp market, what changes did it bring to the temp market? So we've got to start to think what laws are going to change and affect our contract and temp market. So once I've got my product, I then need to start to think. I decided what the product marketplace I'm going into. So now to think, I need to build a candidate database. And the first place I should always go to is the CRM. How many candidates are already on the CRM that already know my business? How many candidates of those candidates have we spoken to? Do we know what they do? Do we know when last they updated their CV? Do we know when they're available to work? And that's a really important one. When are they available to work? If I look at their CV, I'm then starting to strip their CV down, because every candidate should give me another opportunity to either find more candidates or to find more clients that take temps or contractors. So I'm going to strip CVs down and make sure I work that CV properly. So if I look at the last 3 temp jobs or last 3 contracts that candidate has worked, if I don't know those clients, they are then an instant target for me to speak to. And therefore I need to put those targets on my CRM and diarize them to make sure I call those clients. I'm looking for referrals. I want my candidates, if I know the candidates really well, who can they refer me to? Can they refer me to other companies, and can they refer me to other candidates? Again, I'm always looking at how I expand my market and grow my market. The more clients and candidates I know within my market and I'm in touch with, the more I can influence my marketplace. So you can't do the contract market by just simply keyboard warring. It needs to be talking to the marketplace. You need to be out there stripping CVs, talking to candidates every moment of every day, taking referrals. You need to make sure that we can get references, because references mean we can open a client a lot easier, because we're going back with candidates that they may have used in the past. And I opened the Arcadia Group or Burton's by simply putting a candidate back to the client that they'd already had working on their site previously. Found out they were available. It'd gone past the gestation period of their contract, so I could now place them, and not through the other agency. And I opened up that client. I then, over a period of time, I think I had a max out there, about 30 or 40 contractors in there, but a huge client, all by taking a reference for a candidate and then placing him back on client site. My candidates are really important because they are my product. So I need to be interviewing all my candidates. I need to know my candidates almost intimately. So when I speak to a client and a client gives me an opening, I can instantly name 3, 4, 5 candidates straight away that I can know can do that job. I need to be able to do that by understanding what my candidates actually want. So I interview them obviously now by video or via phone if I need to. I want to qualify my candidates thoroughly. The more I understand about my candidate, the more I understand how I can place them. The more knowledge I get from my candidates about my clients, the more I can talk to my clients with intelligent conversations. The more I can talk to them, the more I can probe with them, because I'm already talking to people that have given me lots of information, so they don't feel like they're giving me anything extra. So I work really hard with my candidates to thoroughly qualify them. I then want to market out my top 20% of my candidates daily. So if I've spoken to 10 candidates, I will market the best 2 out every single day. But I only market them to very precise clients. I do not, and this is in both the temp and the contract market, think, here's a contractor, I'll blanket them across all my client base. Because if you do that, you're going to switch all your clients off. It should go to the client where they are a 99% match for that client. I want to visit my top 20 contractors regularly. So I've got contractors working them, go out and visit them. Ask them to bring other contractors, other temps along, get to know them, get to understand what's going on. But I also need to understand the difference between markup and margin. And I'm going to discuss this later on, but it's really important that you understand the difference between markup and margin, because the difference in poundage is really important, because a 25% markup is a 20% margin. So if you have a client that's talking markup and you're thinking margin, you're going to lose out. So they might say they want a 20%. And you're thinking margin, well, that equates to 16 point something percent margin, not markup. So you need to know the difference, okay? And I say I'll cover that later on. I need to market to my candidate database. And this is what the internet has given us now. But this is where we are poor, okay? We spend lots of days doing social media posts on LinkedIn or what have you through the social media. But we generally post the requirements that we have on. But really, not all contractors are out looking for a job, or not all temps are looking for a job at that moment in time. So we need to spend out contract information or contract specific information that they're interested in. What's going on in the marketplace? What's happening in the marketplace? So if I looked at IR35, what's happening with IR35? My marketplace would be really interested in that. If I've got a marketplace where I've got a lot of EU employees working in the UK at the moment, what's going to happen when we leave the union? Okay, what is actually going to happen to those people? So I've got to start to think about the information that I could pump out that would make my candidates want to see me as an expert in the marketplace. The area we don't market to, but the area that we can most influence, is the CRM. We've talked about talking to candidates and putting candidates on the CRM and stripping CVs. These candidates know us, but we very seldom market to them. So make sure your CRM is, again, put into little niches. So these candidates are very niche boxes, and market to them specifically. That way you can then start to put industry news out to them and put exclusive jobs out to them. That means they're coming back to you constantly, as well as you going to them. You need to be calling your database. Once you've just interviewed them, that's not enough. Call them. Focus on contractors who are assignments are coming to an end, because you then may be able to place them elsewhere. You also might find an assignment that's on a project, and it's just that part of the project that's coming to an end, and they need more contractors after that with a different skill set. So concentrate on those candidates that are coming to an end of an assignment. Can you place them elsewhere? What else is happening on that client site? Arrange meetups with your candidates. Arrange for group meetings with candidates. Get them all in a room talking about certain things. The more you can speak to your candidates and the more you can speak to your clients, the more opportunity you will create. We need to be honest with contractors, okay, and temps. Give your contractors an outstanding service. Call your workers bi-weekly. Talk to them on a regular basis. I detest the fact that lots of recruiters only speak to a contractor or a temp when they're coming to the end of their assignment. We should be speaking to them on a regular basis. Yes, I understand some temp assignments are only a day long or a week long, but still we should be speaking to them and having that conversation with them. It's a people business. And that is where I found myself, that I spoke to my candidates far more than anybody else. And I created far better relationships. So they would come and tell me far more things. And I opened clients up purely based on the back of that. And you need to make you need to make it easy for the contractor to do business with you. And that's everything from submitting a CV, responding to a job, timesheets, interview prep, etc. Make it easy to do business with you. And we've got to build trust. Without trust, you have nothing. And the contract market and the temp market is a very, very competitive market. But have trust. Make them trust you. But never, ever show that you don't trust them. Even though you might do that, we've got to create a view that you're trying to help every person all the time. So we move on to pitch, okay? And pitch is really important. When we start to pitch our clients, we need to have knowledge of the marketplace. So you need to know your marketplace. You need to know your client database, how all your clients link together, who's worked for each client, who's moved to another client, etc. So if you know your candidate database, you can start to have those conversations that you know all of these people, and you're starting then to create common ground. Once you create common ground and people realize how ingrained you are in the marketplace, they start to want to do more business with you. You need to know your company USPs. Know your company USPs and improve them constantly so you can beat your competition. So you need to know what your competition's offering and know your USPs so you know your unique selling points and upgrade them constantly. So know your pitch. We need to target clients. And as I said, you need to focus on those cash cows. If you can start to crack open a couple of cash cows, wow. Brilliant. But as you're focusing on cash cows, we also need to develop cash calves, those businesses underneath that will have contractors or temps on a transient basis. We need to develop those type of clients, because if we have those type of clients and we have cash cows, then we're starting to get in a really good position. What we don't want is one cash cow and nothing else, because if that cash cow stops, then your whole business stops. So you need a really good blended client base of people that you're talking to. So we need to build a strong and loyal client base, and that is all about service. And service is judged in the temp and contract market based on the quality of the candidate you put forward to your client. If you put poor candidates forward, then you will get a poor reputation and you'll get zero loyalty. If you put really candidates that excel, then guess what? Clients will come back to you time and time again. So remember to network your marketplace. And I always think market is the 6 degrees of separation. Okay. They always say that within 6 people, you should find somebody that you know. Okay. So it's 6 degrees of a placement. Who else do you know? Who else do you know? Who else do you know? And so on. But think about some of the clients that waste your time. Do not be afraid to sack clients that waste time, because wasting time means you're getting a bad reputation with the candidate marketplace, and you can't afford that. Your candidates, if you've got lots of candidates on site, okay, and different sites, if you treat your candidate well, they will become your sales force. They'll be recommending you to those clients. So remember, do not work with clients that waste your time. So you need to know your pitch. If I met a client in an elevator, can I pitch that person in 2 minutes? Where they look at my service and listen to my pitch and think, actually, Howard, I want to carry on this conversation and have a far more in-depth conversation about how you can help me. So I need to differentiate my pitch and offer services that are different to my competition. So know what they're offering, but always think then, what else can I offer? So we talk about our recruitment processes. We talk about what processes we give. So how often do you evaluate your processes and upgrade them? How often do you talk about to the clients about what they truly want from our process so we can change those processes more in line with our client? So we need to differentiate our service offerings, to build and review our services that we offer to our client. And like we do with the candidate, we need to make it easier for our client to work with us. So if it can be automated, automate it, because that makes it so much easier for the client and cuts errors. And the biggest thing in a contract market is errors. If we have errors on pay, errors on the contract, errors on invoices, it annoys the candidates and the clients, and they switch off from us. If we can automate it and get it right, just putting it in once rather than having to do it manually over and over again, then you see a huge difference in the trust and loyalty that your client brings to you. And ensure your clients are compliant with the law. So you are the safeguard against them. So you need to make sure that they are compliant and you are compliant. And that way you make sure that everyone that you're working with is compliant. The last thing you want is a legal case where a client comes to you and something that you have done is going to cost them with the HMRC, or vice versa. Something that you haven't done is now going to cost you, because you now, as a contract, and a genuine contract, not to contractors and temp, you now are the last person in line for the HMRC to come to for tax. And if the contractor hasn't paid tax, the client's not going to get forced to pay it. The contractor isn't going to get forced to pay it. It will be you. So back into pitch. So you need to know and plan your business pitches. You need to pitch daily. You can't afford a yo-yo market. You need to be pitching your clients daily and talking to the daily. And therefore, when I was pitching, I would pitch in blocks, and I would make sure that I was hitting clients constantly all the time. If I'd made a really great call, I would instantly make another call straight away. I wanted to capitalize on my enthusiasm, capitalize on that good feeling that I got from making a great call. Strangely, I've just booked a client for a day's audit meeting just before this call, and I was getting really excited, and then I looked at the clock and it was like 11:23, and I was thinking, oh, hang on a minute, I've got 7 minutes before the webinar starts. But I was really effervescent about what was coming on, and I came off that call, and almost 30 years in recruitment, I still get that little buzz. So I prepare and I pitch in blocks. I pitched, I'd won the pitch. It was brilliant. The preparation I put into that pitch, though, was really important. I understood exactly what the client wanted, what they would need from me, and therefore I was absolutely on point when we discussed that, so I could close the deal down at the end. How many times have I practiced those pitches in my head? I cannot tell you. I constantly go over pitches in my head. When I'm driving to a client, I'll go over that pitch in my head. If I've had a pitch and it hasn't quite worked, I haven't won, I instantly start evaluating my pitch. What goes on? Why is it not working? What can I change? If I start to do that, then what I start to do is develop my pitch continually. And if I develop my pitch continually, then what I need to do is learn from my failures. And if I can learn from my failures, then I tend not to fail as much. Yes, recruitment is more about failing than it is about winning. But if I don't learn from my failures, then my winning diminishes. So I have to learn how to close and how to close hard. Closing is the important part when it comes to the contract market, okay? But it's not as important as overcoming objections. You will get lots of objections. We've got suppliers, we've got a PSL, we've got an RPO, okay? But as I say, if you can come around those objections, you can overcome most clients. And if you can get around those objections, you can get one little finger, one little hook into a client, then your job is to open that client up and fire as much opportunity as you can from that client. So the contract market, to me, is very, very sort of competitively aggressive. And it's not about being aggressive as in, it's being aggressive as in, I want to make sure that I dominate every client that I'm in. So I'm going to be aggressive in my client to make sure that I dominate. So I'm going to call constantly. I'm going to be helping constantly, because by being aggressive into my client and providing a brilliant service, I'm pushing my competition away constantly. So aggressing to me was an internal thing. Externally, it was about offering a better service, a constant service. So I learned how to overcome objections, but what I never did was work with a client that hadn't signed my terms and conditions. I never worked with them. So it means I sent my terms out constantly, and I made sure my client worked with those terms. So it is important that your terms go out. In this day and age, electronic signatures, etc., makes it so much easier. So make sure we're doing that. You need to market your best candidates daily to your best clients. But remember, your client and your candidate have to be a very high percentage match. And I'm talking 98% match, okay, to make sure that when your client sees it, they go, I've got a desire. If I had a job, I'd take this candidate on. Or actually, I need this candidate right now. Let's take me on. And quite a lot of my placements, probably 20% of my placements, came from that type of operation. Clients, not knowing that they needed a candidate, suddenly had the candidate in front of them, suddenly found a job for them to do. That's what the market will start to be like when we start to recover out of lockdown, because clients will suddenly find that they've either made redundancies too much and therefore have a hole in their business, or they have a skills gap in their business that they need to cover. Therefore, we've got an opportunity there. So to do that, you need to visit your clients regularly and understand what your clients actually want, and understand the meaning between urgency and delivery. It's important that we show urgency, and it's important that we become time-bound to our client. But there's a very difference between working a job that you're never going to fill and delivery. So work on them both. If you can deliver the job, show urgency about it, okay? So that means, and this is a thing that sort of irks me today, 11 o'clock, it's now, what time is it? It's now a minute to 12, sorry. Minute to 12, and we're 6 out of 22 slides. God, I need to get a shift on. So minute to 12, okay, job comes in. What I see in quite a lot of agencies is that contract consultant or temp consultant go, I'm just going to nip for lunch. Well, guess what? Those competitive, aggressive consultants may have that job at the same time. They're not going to lunch. So by the time you get back from lunch, all the best candidates in the marketplace has gone. So urgency is really important. But if you know you're never going to find that candidate or that you can't deliver to that client, take lunch. But think what is urgent and deliver that to them. So we've now got to think about our profile. And our profile is really important. What does your profile look like? When you speak to a client and speak to a candidate, okay, guess what? They look at you up on the internet and they look at what your personal brand looks like, your brand. They look at what your business brand looks like. They look at what your company looks like. So I always think if somebody Googled you, what would it say about you? What would they see? If they Googled you, would they see you, having fun, out on the beer, having a bit of a crack? But does that give them the view that you are a professional recruiter? Does that give them a view that they can trust their business with you? If you think you want to bill anything over 200, 300, 400, 500K, the professional people do that. Why? Because clients trust them. Yes, outwardly, they might be going out and doing whatever they want to do, but to the public, this is what they look at. So be professional. So that means all your profiles, whether it be on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, etc., need to be uniformed. You need to be posting things on there and they need to be up to date. And one of the things that really sort of bugs me about photos of people, okay, people with alcohol in their hands, people on the beach, etc., etc., what does that say to the client and what does that say about you? So never underestimate the power of your profile. You need to be approachable, okay, in your profile, and you need to exude professionalism, because what you publicize then becomes really important. And when we talk about what you publicize, we start to talk about, generally this is a modern world. And modern world means that most people pick up their information on their phone, whether it's through LinkedIn, Twitter, a news app, etc. So you need to engage in your audience constantly. The more you engage your audience, the more your audience sees you. You become subliminal, okay? You're tapping away into their brain constantly, and therefore they see what you want, okay? So market to your candidates and clients. Make that marketing generic, because I keep saying to when I meet people, if you walked into a pub and opened the pub door and I said, right, tell me who's a client and who's a candidate, you can't do that, okay? So when you're engaging with your audience, there are candidates and clients both in that audience. So make sure you're posting relevant information that would interest both of them. Do not just post jobs. So it should be interesting articles, market information, everyday topics of interest, news that's appropriate to your marketplace. But don't just post once a week, post daily. If you've got a marketplace, I can almost guarantee there will be some form of local industry news, online news, news feeds, etc. Subscribe to them and use them. It generally only takes 5 minutes to put one post out a day. If you put a post out and start to ask questions and start to put people into those posts, people start to respond to you. And the more people start to see you out there, the more people will know you. What you tend to find then when you start to call candidates and clients, because you may have linked in with them but you've never spoken with them, or they may be linked in with somebody else that may have seen your post, liked it, therefore they get the view of it as well, then all of a sudden you're spreading your name across the marketplace. So you need to automate it if you can, okay? It keeps you in front of your audience daily, and I mean daily. So that and BD calls, picking up the phone, means you've got a far better reach into the marketplace than people just doing a spasmodic post, one every week or one every fortnight. Somebody's just sending emails every day and never actually calling clients. Get yourself out there, doing the right things. Okay. It will also provide you with market information and leads that you can then use to sell to clients. So partnership is a really important thing in the recruitment market. Okay. And I keep talking to partnership. Okay. So you need to contact with influencers in your marketplace. So people who are maybe the head people in those cash cows that you want to break into, tag them on some of your social media posts. Ask questions of them on their social media posts. They might start to come back to you. The more they see you, the more they might want to meet you. The more they want to meet with you, the more opportunity you have to sell. The more they meet you, the more they might want to backdoor their current supply arrangement because you've got a better arrangement. So work with them to increase your circle of influence. So tagging people on social media, connecting with people on social media, keeping them engaged on social media always increases your circle of influence. Partner with your best clients that you're already working with them. What else can you offer them outside of recruitment? What else can you do for them outside of recruitment? Partner with your candidates. What's the candidate journey look like? Partner with your marketplace. And when we partner with our marketplace, we could start to invite clients in and candidates into meetups and start to give information about the marketplace and what's going on in the marketplace. You therefore become the influencer in the marketplace. So webinars and service providers give you that type of information. And we all know clients that are happy to say, well, I'm an expert in this. Would you give me a talk on this? Yes. And then invite other clients to come and listen to those type of people. You then are influencing the marketplace. And guess what? You've got all your market, therefore, in one room or on one Zoom call, like on this call here. I've got lots of people on this call here, okay, that I can influence and work from there. So process then becomes really important, okay? And this is a process that we're going to go through You need to learn the recruitment basics really, really well. Learn the fundamentals. Do not cut corners. If you cut corners in the contract market, they will trip you up very, very quickly. Know your target audience before calling. Plan each day and be organized. If you're disorganized in the contract market, trust me, you are not going to make an awful lot of money. You need to be organized. You need to seize the opportunities as they come. You can't let them rest. Build a candidate database of at least 200 candidates that you have met and interviewed, and keep that 200 fresh. Keep getting rid of candidates that maybe have dropped out, candidates that are poor, etc. Keep refreshing it. So that means interviewing and marketing candidates out daily is really important. Refresh constantly is what we need to be doing. Build your client database. Know who has the potential to buy this month, buy in the next 3 months. Know your target client and know who has big projects on the go. Therefore, you know when you should be pitching into those clients. You should therefore know when to build a candidate marketplace that can help fulfill those clients' needs. So therefore, pitching daily is really important. Refresh your candidate and client database, as I said, regularly. Ask for referrals off every single candidate and every single client. How many clients can give you names of candidates is absolutely all of them. But how often do you ask a client, look, I'm looking for this type of contractor or a temp for this other client here. You haven't had anybody working for you that you could recommend that's not working for you at the moment, could you? Wow, what an easy conversation to have with a client, okay? But how often do we do that? Learn something new every day about your marketplace that you can start to improve. Learn something about your recruitment process that isn't going well that you want to improve, okay? Learn from your mistakes and look at the experts in your office, or if there isn't experts in the office, constantly look at how you can improve. Close, control, close, control, close. Learn how to close and learn how to control the sale will be your process. Know what makes you money and what doesn't. Too many consultants hide behind jobs that will not make them money, or keep calling clients that are never going to do business with them. There is a time when you have to eject those clients and start to find better clients. Know your contractors personally. Take time to get to know them. I had a consultant that worked for me. He was my resourcer originally, then left, then came back to work for me elsewhere. I had him working with a different manager, okay? And that manager came to me and said, Howard, I've got to tell you this, that I know he's a friend of yours and he was your resourcer, but he just makes personal calls all day. And I said, He's sure he's making personal calls. Yeah, he talks about Leeds United. He talks about Yorkshire cricket. He talks about this. He talks about that. You know, I'm not really sure that he's going to do any good. 2 years later, he sat there with a 17 grand a week order book. That's £17,000 gross profit order book. Okay. He was talking to candidates and clients that he knew intimately. They got him into clients that allowed him to accelerate from 0 to 17K in 2 years. Think about that. Look for windows of opportunity where you have stoppers. So contractors and temps coming to a stop. Okay. If you've got no stoppers coming, you've got an opportunity to grow. If you've got lots of stoppers coming, how are you going to stay level and keep your business at a level playing field? So you've got to review your business constantly, regroup constantly, review constantly. So if you know your numbers all the way through the marketplace, you should never drop. You should always either remain steady, okay, or start to grow. So I used to write a success list every day, not a to-do list. What am I going to succeed at today? And I would tick off my successes because that would give me a buzz. So the process is important. Account management, constant contact with your client. Know the projects that the client's going on that require staffing. Cross-sell and upsell constantly. And look at your cash flow. If you're a business leader on this call, or you're a contract consultant on this call, or a temp consultant on this call, okay, if your clients aren't paying you, you're going to end up with a cash flow problem. So your terms and conditions are really important. Help onboarding. Address all problems early. Address any extensions or renewals early. Make sure you are compliant all the way through. So that means looking at IR35, opt-in, AWR, Employment's Right Act, industry regulations, health and safety, etc. PPE now is a big thing. Okay, so for this very part, okay, building your desk, all these things, okay, you must build your product base first. You must be able to know how to pitch and be able to pitch daily. You need to, in this day and age, have a social media presence and profile that wants clients to do business with you. You need to publicize the power of social media, okay, every day. So use that everyday publicity that you can get out there on social media to grow your influence in the marketplace, and then partner with other people and influencers. And then the process, make your process foolproof and constantly refine it. So we then start to flip. Once we start to build this, we need to interview and negotiate with contracts and temps, okay? So again, this is the second part of the marketplace. So it's very different to perm. So my objectives of this course are very simple, okay? I want to know why it is different, okay? I want to know the difference between the contract and the temp market, interviewing the difference between the two, negotiating with a contractor, negotiating with a temp, looking for wins and upsells, and keeping compliant. So why is interviewing and negotiating a contractor or a temp different to a permanent candidate? I want you to think, this is very straightforward. Contracts and temp are purely looking for interim assignments, either short-term, day here, 2 days there, a week here, or 3 months here, 6 months here, 12 months here. So there's a very difference between the temp is usually very short-term, contract is usually a little bit longer, okay? But they have a defined end date, so they're not looking for a career, okay? And that's what we're saying. These guys and these girls aren't looking for careers. It may be a stepping stone on a temp market to get into a career. It may be a shortfall whilst they're looking for something different, okay? Contractors is generally a lifestyle choice more than anything else. You've also got to remember that contracts and temps get paid in different ways to permanent staff. So you've got to understand how that works. And contracts and temps are governed by different legislation which agencies need to be compliant with. So if you don't understand that legislation, then you can't give best practice to your candidates or your clients. You need to look for different attributes between the contractors and the temps. So when we think about clients, they look for those different attributes to perm, or should they? My modus operandi, and I think why I grew such a big book, was purely because if I could find a candidate that would match their permanent style, permanent behaviors, then they tend to keep that candidate longer. They gave them longer contracts. They gave them longer durations. They renewed that candidate more. So look for the right attributes for that candidate that match the client, not just the skill set. So we've got to start to think about different things that we can do to start to create opportunities for us to make more placements. So the difference between contract and temp then is very simple, okay? As we build this, contractors normally run their own limited company or work under an umbrella company, and therefore they're governed by different rules. You're not paying this person a salary. You're paying their limited company for their services. So we don't have PAYE problems with these people because they look after their own PAYE. We are just paying them a service. Hence why when we pay for services, we apply a margin to that service. Okay? If we're supplying a product, which a PAYE person is, it is a markup on that product. So there's a very difference between the two. So we've got to understand that. Okay, temps normally work via the PAYE model, or either via an agency or again via an umbrella company. So remember, if you're putting your margin or your markup on top, you have the salary, you have the NI and tax to go on top, then put your margin on top. What you've got to remember is don't just apply your margin, okay, and look at it, but look at it from the overall. A client might look at you and say, well, that's a 35% margin. But remember, a big chunk of that is the tax that you have to pay the government. So make sure you understand what you're doing with that. Contractors normally work in a highly skilled environment, such as IT, finance, so generally white collars. Yes, we get temps in those marketplaces as well, but in general, the contract market is the highly skilled environment. Techie contractors, finance, HR, white collar. Temp tend to work more in that industrial, office support, cleaning, labouring, blue collar, but do work white collar work as well. So think about the difference between the two. The difference between the two is pay rate, but then the difference also is volume. So industrial, there's a lot more industrial temps out there than probably there are IT contractors out there. So the money counterbalances itself either way. So when you start to look at your niche, you need to look at the one that's going to suit you and your business and how that's working. So interviewing contractors and temps. Okay, so again, there is a very different view, and I have a foot in each camp here. We should be interviewing face-to-face and over the phone. The difference from interviewing a contractor and a permanent person, or a temp and a permanent person, the primary thing I want to know from my contractor is, can they and will they be able to do the job? Everything else, okay, is important. Yes, I'm going to look at behaviors because I want to match my behaviors as much as possible, but I'm not looking for this guy to have a career or this lady to have a career. Okay, so I want to know purely straight away, can they and will they be able to do the job? Can they, skill-wise, will they, finance, travel, etc. They're my priorities when I start to talk to contractors. I want to look at gaps in their CVs, and lots of temps have gaps in their CVs. Why is that gap there? If they have a short-term assignments, I want to know why they are short. Why have they never been renewed if they're a contractor? Why have they never been extended? What's going on? If I'm a temp, why have they never gone back to a company more than once? Okay, why is that? Lots of temps go back time and time and time again because they give a good service, and therefore the client will ask for them by name if they're available. So look for gaps in CVs and look for things that do not reoccur. If they've got lots of small jobs and small assignments, okay, why does nobody retain them? Why does nobody ask them back? Why they never get extended? That gives you an idea of the quality of that candidate. Should you be working with those type of candidates? Confirm their availability and potential opportunities to extend. So if you're talking to a candidate, when you're talking to them, find out if they are going to extend, renew. Because again, you don't want to put a candidate forward that is likely to renew because you're going to lose that candidate. You've lost an opportunity to make a placement. You could have a better candidate or another candidate in there that might take that opportunity up. Selling interview styles. So immediate start, telephone, and face-to-face. So when I'm talking to a client, I sell interview styles. Mr. Client, I've got the perfect candidate. They'll be in your office tomorrow. They will start. They'll work for half the day free of charge. If you think that candidate is right, then you pay them for that half a day and the rest of the assignment as it goes forward from there. If they won't do that, for speed's sake, I want them to do a telephone interview because you've already face-to-face them. So if your client trusts you, they will do a telephone interview. If I have to, I will then go to a face-to-face interview. But I only want one interview, not 2 or 3. It's a temp or contract job, 1 interview. Or if you've got the client eating out the palm of your hands, just placing people straight on site is the ultimate and optimum goal. Confirm their rates, day rate, hourly rates, confirm what they're going to get paid. And always, and I mean always, make sure you've confirmed it in writing. Do not get them saying, well, I wanted £12.50 an hour, and then you come back to them, all of a sudden they wanted £13.50 an hour, but you've never confirmed that with them. Confirm their rate. Always round the rate up, round the rate down of the contractor and the client's rate up. Therefore, you can stretch your margin a little bit. Always confirm references and always ask for a referral, because that way you're always building your market. Due diligence at this point is really important. The right to work. Has the candidate got the right to work or not? So negotiating with a contractor is very different. And this is the difference between markup and margin. Never tell your contractor your budget until you have their rate. So when you negotiate with a contractor, we're talking margin, okay? Never markup. So make sure you understand the difference from there. As I say, never tell your contractor your budget until you have their rate, because they might suddenly say, well, I'm on £400 a day. And you might be thinking, well, I've got £500 a day. Or you might have only £350 a day. So know where their rate is first, rather than you give your rate at £500 a day and they go, yeah, I'm happy with that, because they might have only been on £250. So you've got to start to think, get them to give you your budget first. As I said, around the contractor's rate and the client's rate down means you can stretch their margin, okay? You want to know what their current rate is, what rates they are looking for, and what rates they will accept. There's a very difference between what they look for and what they'll accept. So I always look at that, what they'd love to have, intend to have, and must have. Must have is usually their current client rate. Intend to have is a little bit of, but love to have might be both. So if someone's suddenly raising their increasing their rate by 10, 15, 20%, you've got to understand why and find out why. So if the rate's more than you can afford, you need to find out the reason. If they are too expensive for you, what can you trade? What can you negotiate with them? Okay, so duration of contract could be something you can negate with them. Okay, so you want £10 an hour, it's a week's contract. Okay, I can only pay £9 an hour, but if I got the contract for 5 weeks, you got 5 weeks solid work, would you take that? So I start to negotiate things like that. I look at start date and availability. I want to make sure they can start and they are available to start. So when they are on assignment, that looking for reasons, are they going to accept an extension, becomes really important. So have they been offered an extension? Have they discussed it? Have they discussed the rate and duration? What's the likelihood of accepting that, becomes really important. We start to look at project work that contractors are on, okay, and what training is available for them. If we have a good project, they're likely to stay. They're likely to be more desired for that project. If it's a really interesting techie project, okay, if they have extra training, then it means that they can charge more when they go out, okay, and we need to confirm assignments details in writing before the interview. And if they ask, be honest about your margin. It's nothing to do with them after all, but be honest about your margin. So when we negotiate with temps, it's slightly different. If they're already temping, we want to know what their current pay rate. I want to see evidence of that pay rate through a pay slip. What are they actually getting paid? I always try to pay more than my competitors because that secures loyalty. If I can give them a little bit more holiday pay, a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that, can I pay a little bit more than my competitors, because it does secure loyalty. I want to know why people temp, and usually temp because it's the pay rate, continuous assignments, and the variety of assignments. So if I'm paying a little bit more and I can give continuous assignments and variety of assignments to my temps, they'll keep coming back to me. If I have a good temp, I want to keep them in work constantly. So I'm always looking at how I can get my really good temps out again and again and again. So understand other benefits they receive from other agencies. As I said, holiday pay, pension, sick pay, overtime, etc. What are they getting from other agencies that you're maybe not supplying, that you should be supplying, that might secure that temp on a longer term and more rolling assignments? Pay will always be affected by qualifications, levels of skills, seniority, and previous roles and responsibilities. So think about the candidates that you're putting forward to certain clients, and think about what you're doing with those clients, and think about how you can then increase the potential rate of your candidate that increases your margin. Pay rates will vary based on duration of clients. The shorter the duration, the more they should be paying. The longer the duration, you can maybe drop the rate a little bit, okay, overall rate a little bit for duration, because people will trade that, okay? And obviously start date, duration, and availability and flexibility is really important in that temp market. If you've got a person ringing you up at 5 o'clock today and they want someone in tomorrow, you need to make sure that their candidate is flexible, that they're available, okay, and they're happy with the duration, okay, to start when you want them to start. So the negotiation side is slightly different because it's a very different negotiation to what you would normally do with a perm. So looking for wins and upselling is really important, okay? Always ask your contractor and your temp about usage. Once they're on site, you need to identify how many more candidates are on site working in that temp environment or that contract environment. Is it a one-off? Is it a cash calf? Is it a cash cow? What type of client is it in there? You need to be finding out more, but not just in the area that they're working in. What other areas might be taking temps and contractors on as well? Always address your extensions early and look for those growth windows. The quicker you address your extensions and the more you're speaking to your candidates, the more loyalty you get from them. Where else can you place your finishers? Follow them and hold on to them. If you can't place them, then follow them wherever they go. They might introduce you to a new client. It might be to one of your old clients. Why have you missed that job out? What have you done? So always make sure you follow your finishers. Make sure you keep in contact with them. It's good practice. Always ask who else they know. And then once you've asked them that, ask them who else they know again. Ask your candidates to introduce you to their boss or their past employers. What a great introduction. I work with Howard Greenwood. He's a great guy, blah, 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 blah. You should really talk to him. He's already selling your services up if you give a good service. So make sure we're doing that. Ask your candidate, give your candidate free information that's maybe not worth anything to you, but makes the world to the candidate. And that's marketing out to them constantly. Quite often I would turn to a candidate and say, actually, Mr. Candidate, I haven't got a job for you, but I know there's a job over there at that client there that I'm not working with. Why don't you approach them? I want to get that candidate a job. Why? Yes, I may be losing a good candidate on the marketplace, but if I can't place him and they can place me on someone else can place him on a client site, but he sings my praises, I have an opportunity to get into that client. Always be willing to give great advice and knowledge to your candidates. They're always asking for it, so always give it. And always look for an advantage. Always look to upsell duration. If you have training, what can you trade for it? Upsell the potential of full-time employment for temps, etc. Always look to upsell the opportunity to your client and your candidate. And as I said, make your recruitment process easy. Your payments, your billings, your invoices, etc. Make it as easy as possible. So if you're still persisting with paper timesheets, think about it. Make it as easy as possible because clients and candidates like the easy route. Onboard your candidates, so in the first week and a temp, speak to them on the first day. But on the contract market, I'd never speak to them on the first day because they find that rude. I would only speak to them at the end of the first week to find out how it's going and then help them with their timesheet system. On the first day with a temp, if they have to fill that timesheet system, help them fill that timesheet system in, preventing errors. And keep in contact with your contractors and your candidates on a regular basis, face-to-face, over the phone. If they're having problems, show empathy, okay? If they're trying to find a job, show empathy, okay? Treat them as you would want to be treated yourself. Hold regular contractor meetings or surgeries. And I used to have these meetings constantly with candidates. So I'd go onto a site and I'd say, I'm happy to make any conversation with anybody. So clients with lots of contractors on there, even if they weren't my contractors, I'd sometimes set up in the pub across the road and send them out all invites and get loads of them in and have conversations with them. I want to keep them all the time, my knowledge with them, and add my knowledge of them with me. So I knew when they were available, where they were working, and where they were placing. So it was interesting. My boss used to talk to me about the AS400 market, and a comment originally was, what you seem to know, Howard, is if a candidate coughs on a site, you can hear it, you can feel it, and therefore you're reacting to it all the time. So that same thing, you should know every candidate in your marketplace, and if they're on a site that you don't know about, you should be in there. If they're on a site that you should be doing business with, you should be in there. If they're a site, okay, that they're on, and you are a primary supplier to them and you haven't supplied them, why? Why did you miss that candidate? So these things are really important. And the final thing that we want to discuss, some very short time, okay, is compliancy. You need to meet your candidates and make sure they're compliant. So IR35, Working Time Directive, PAYE, statutory pay and compensation limits, pay holiday, national insurance, pension contributions, right to work as an agency worker, contracting overseas, workers' regulations, okay, who's responsible for collecting and paying and tax, and the list goes on and on and on, and that's a whole webinar on itself. But if you are not compliant, you are setting yourself up for a big, big fall. So make sure you keep compliant. So to conclude, this side of the contract and building a desk and maintain it, know your marketplace, contract and temp, know them really well. Ensure you're interviewing candidates daily. Ensure you're looking to build a market from your candidate information, and you know your one-off clients, your cash cows, your cash calves, and you've got a strategy to break into those clients. Target your clients. Make sure you're working your clients constantly. You're always there talking to them. You're always there when they need your help. Negotiation is not easy. Confirm negotiation in writing to both your candidates and your clients. The contract market is very, very fast moving. So if you do not keep your notes up to date and up to speed, you may get caught out. So negotiation is hard, to confirm everything in writing so you have evidence of what you've negotiated and agreed. Always look for the quick wins for every contractor and every temp. They can give you quick wins, new candidates, new temps, intro to clients, etc. Make sure they're working for you, even if they're not working for you. Make sure they are working for you. Keep your candidate and your contractor and temp compliant. Your client will love you for it. Your contractor and temp might not understand it, okay, but they will love you for it because it will prevent them having any dealings with the HMRC, which everybody wants to avoid. Keep up to date with the law, okay, whichever country they're working in, okay, make sure you're up to date in the law. If they're working in the EU nowadays, okay, and which country is it, and they're from the UK, where are they paying tax? Are they paying tax in the UK? Are they paying tax in Germany? Who owns the tax rights for that? Who's going to get charged for the tax if they don't pay it? That person is definitely going to be you. So make sure you're up to date with everything, okay? Address your extensions early and look for those growth windows, as I've said, to exploit. So if you've got lots of stoppers coming in and then you've got a bank where there's no stoppers stopping, that's your growth window. Can you grow? So can you maintain the level, and then you've maintained it, then you should grow. And that's when you start to see opportunities to grow. And be open and honest about your margins and your fees. It's really important. So ladies and gentlemen, that's today's webinar. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, then by all means, feel free to drop me some questions. Okay. If you want a webinar next week on the certain topics that you want to discuss, by all means, drop me an email, drop me a link on LinkedIn, anything, and I'm happy to oblige. Otherwise, it's my choice, so it could be anything. So guys and girls, thank you very much for your time today. It's been much appreciated. Enjoy your lunch. And thanks very much for your time. I've been Howard Greenwood, and this is LoveWorkLife Training Academy.